Have you ever stopped to think about how the story of a whole country, its history, its economy, even its future, can be read just by looking at the layout of its cities? Well, today that's exactly what we're going to do. We're diving deep into the urban story of Brazil, a nation that's been shaped, and you could even say defined, by its incredible, sprawling cities.
Take a look at this. This is so much more than just a cool satellite image. What you're actually looking at is the massive, glowing urban corridor that stretches all the way between Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro. This right here, this is the economic heart, the absolute spine of Brazil. It's dense, it's dynamic, and every single one of those lights tells a story.
So that leads to the big questions, right? How in the world did it get like this? This didn't happen by accident. The way Brazil's cities grew is a powerful story of colonialism, huge industrial ambitions, massive migrations, and yeah, some really deep-seated inequalities that you can literally trace on a map.
To get to the bottom of it all, here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to start with the universal reason cities even exist in the first place, then zoom right into Brazil's unique journey, from its colonial roots on the coast all the way to its role on the global stage today.
Okay, first things first. Before we can really wrap our heads around a place like Sao Paulo or Rio, we need a quick look at the fundamental blueprint for any city anywhere on Earth.
It really all boils down to one simple, game-changing fact. Cities could not exist without agriculture. Think about it. The Neolithic Revolution let us produce more food than farmers needed just to feed themselves. And that surplus, that was the magic key that unlocked urbanization. It freed people up to do other things, to be artisans, soldiers, priests, administrators, all the specialists who actually build and run a city.
And just to give you some perspective on how crazy recent this urban world of ours really is, let this number sink in. In the year 1800, only 3%, of the entire world's population lived in cities. For almost all of human history, we were an overwhelmingly rural species.
So with that universal foundation in place, let's pivot to Brazil. Because its story begins, and for centuries it stays, quite literally on the edge of the continent.
This population density map isn't just data, it's a perfect picture of 500 years of history. Just look at how the population literally clings to the coastline. This is the direct legacy of a colonial economy that wasn't built to connect Brazil internally, but to export its resources, sugar, gold, coffee, out to Europe.
And this quote just nails it. Early Brazil wasn't one connected nation, it was an economic archipelago. Each of those coastal cities, Recife, Salvador, Rio, was like its own little island, serving its own export cycle. They were actually more connected to Lisbon or London than they were to each other.
Okay, let's fast forward to the 20th century. This is where things get wild. It's a period of dramatic, almost violent transformation, where Brazil basically flips from being a rural nation to an urban powerhouse.
This timeline shows three critical moments. First, the 50s. Industrialization kicks into high gear, pulling millions of people into the southeastern cities. Then, 1960, the government does something audacious. They build a new capital, Brasilia, literally from scratch in the middle of nowhere, a bold attempt to pull the country's focus inward. But then, by the 80s, the dynamic flips again. We see the start of something called demetropolization, where people and industries actually start moving out of the biggest cities and into smaller ones.
And that brings us to the modern era, because the story today is no longer just about Sao Paulo and Rio getting bigger and bigger. The entire urban map of Brazil is being redrawn as we speak.
To really get this, we need this concept of the red urbana, the urban network. Try to think of it less like a collection of separate dots on a map and more like a connected web. A city's importance isn't just about how big it is anymore. It's about its position and its function within this whole network, its ability to influence other cities.
And this map, it illustrates that idea perfectly. It's showing the invisible lines of influence connecting all these cities. You can clearly see the massive pull of Sao Paulo, sure, but look closer. You also see these new, powerful hubs popping up in the interior, often driven by agribusiness. The network is getting way more complex, more polycentric, meaning it has many centers of power, not just one or two.
So what's the result of all this? Well, it's a complete 180 in migration patterns. The classic 20th century story was people moving from the countryside to the big city, right? Today, the big metropolises are actually losing more people than they gain through migration. The hot new destinations? Those dynamic, medium-sized cities in the interior.
Okay, so we've looked at the big picture. Now let's zoom all the way in, right down to the street level. What is daily life actually like inside one of these giant Brazilian metropolises? This phrase, ciudad partida, or the parted city, is absolutely essential. It describes the stark reality of segregation. You have these wealthy, well-serviced central areas right up against these sprawling, precarious peripheries. But they're not separate worlds. They're two sides of the very same coin, produced by a logic that creates incredible wealth and brutal exclusion at the exact same time.
And one process that makes this division even deeper is gentrification. It's this three-step dance you see all over the world, but it hits hard in Brazil's parted cities. First, an area gets revitalized. Second, the cost of living goes through the roof. And third, the original residents get priced out and displaced, pushed even further to the edges. It's the market actively replacing one community with another.
Now, for our last piece of the puzzle, let's zoom back out one last time, this time to the global scale. In our super-connected world, where do Brazil's cities actually fit in?
To understand the global picture, we first have to get this key difference. A megacity is not the same as a global city. A megacity is purely about size. If you've got more than 10 million people, like Dhaka, you're in the club. But a global city? That's about function. It's a command and control center for the global economy, like Zurich, way smaller, but a massive financial powerhouse.
And this chart, wow, this shows a staggering shift in the world's urban center of gravity. Just look at the bars for 1800, 1990, and 2015. You can literally see Europe's dominance just shrink away, while Asia's explodes. This tells the whole story of where urban growth is happening on our planet.
So you see Europe's slice of the pie just collapsing, right? From having 29 of the top 100 cities down to just 10. But here's the twist. It's not because Paris or London are shrinking. Not at all. It's a statistical illusion caused by the absolutely explosive, unprecedented urban growth that's happening in the global south, especially across Asia and Africa.
So where does Brazil stand in all this? Well, according to the top global ranking, São Paulo is an alpha-level global city. It's the country's main plug into the world economy. Rio de Janeiro is a tier below, at the beta level. And this really highlights a central paradox of globalization. You can have these massive megacities with tens of millions of people that still have less global economic power than much smaller cities in Europe or North America. Population size does not automatically equal command and control.
So we've journeyed from the very birth of cities to Brazil's coastal beginnings, its incredible acceleration, and its place in the global network. But it all leads us to this one final critical question. This is the very core of a powerful idea called the right to the city. And it's not just about the right to live in a city, it's about the right for all its people to actively participate in making and remaking the urban spaces they call home. It's a question that really challenges us to think about who our cities are actually for.